For every artist who worships Bob Dylan, there's another who can't stand the man. He's one of the most celebrated songwriters of all time, a poet who reshaped music, culture, and language itself. But behind the praise, there's a darker truth. Because while millions called Dylan a genius, some of the biggest names in music and even literature have called him something very different. They've called him fake, a fraud, a thief, and in one case, something I probably can't say twice in this video. Bob Dylan's career has spanned more than 6 decades, earning him everything from Grammys to a Nobel Prize in literature. His lyrics have been studied like sacred texts, his voice imitated by generations.
'Cause he rules the earth, he can do with it as he please.
But the same traits that made him legendary, his mystery, his arrogance, his refusal to explain himself, also made him one of the most divisive figures in music history. From fellow icons who accused him of stealing to others who just found him unbearable, the hate for Dylan runs deeper than most fans realize. And when these legends spoke up, they didn't hold back. Today, we're looking at 5 icons who absolutely despised Bob Dylan and the brutal things they said about him. But before we start, just remember, genius and controversy usually walk hand in hand. And in Dylan's case, that walk's been going on for over half a century. Joni Mitchell. Everything about Bob is a deception. It's hard to imagine anyone calling Bob Dylan a fraud, but that's exactly what Joni Mitchell did. 2 of the greatest singer-songwriters of all time, both praised for their poetic lyrics and raw emotion. Yet behind the scenes, Joni couldn't stand being compared to Dylan. She hated it. Their music may have shared the same DNA: acoustic guitars, introspective writing, that confessional folk style, but Joni saw herself as the real thing. And in her eyes, Dylan was just a character pretending to be one. In an interview, she didn't hold back. "We are like night and day, Dylan and I," she said. "Bob is not authentic at all. He's a plagiarist, and his name and voice are fake. Everything about Bob is a deception. That's not a subtle jab. That's a full-on character assassination." For Joni, it wasn't just about the music. She saw Dylan's entire persona, the mysterious troubadour, the reluctant prophet, as an act. Someone who built a career on borrowed stories and secondhand sounds. She even went further, saying, musically, Dylan's not very gifted. He's borrowed his voice from old hillbillies. He's not a great guitar player. To her, Dylan was a performer wearing a mask, a man hiding behind the legend he'd created. And she didn't stop there. According to one story, Joni even complained about Dylan's breath, like she couldn't stand being near him, even off stage. Petty or personal, it's clear that the rivalry ran deeper than artistic differences. Ironically, both of them were hailed as poets of a generation. Yet Joni believed Dylan's reputation came from image, not truth. And maybe that's what stung the most. Because when you've spent your whole career bleeding honesty into every lyric, seeing someone else crowned the voice of a generation, when you think it should have been you, that cuts deep. Over the years, the tension mellowed. The two eventually found some common ground. But Joni's words never really disappeared. They still echo as one of the harshest takedowns in music history. And as brutal as that was, the next artist didn't attack Dylan's talent. He went after Dylan as a person. David Crosby, he doesn't let you in. If Joni Mitchell questioned Bob Dylan's authenticity, David Crosby had a different problem: Dylan's personality. To Crosby, Dylan wasn't a fraud. He was just impossible to deal with. And coming from David Crosby, that's saying a lot. Crosby, the outspoken co-founder of the Byrds and Crosby, Stills and Nash, had a reputation for speaking his mind, even when it cost him friends, bandmates, and entire careers. But when it came to Dylan, his frustration sounded less like bitterness and more like genuine exasperation. "He doesn't let you in," Crosby once said. "You'll ask, 'Bob, where do you live?' And he'll say, 'Well, you're looking at a man that has no home.'" That wasn't poetic mystery to Crosby. That was just annoying. He described Dylan as not an easy guy, someone who keeps his distance, avoids connection, and hides behind riddles. Even after decades in the same business, Crosby admitted he never really knew Dylan. not the man behind the songs, not the human behind the myth. And maybe that was the problem. Because while fans worshiped Dylan's mystery, musicians like Crosby saw it as a wall. One that made it impossible to trust or understand him. There's a certain irony here too. The Byrds literally built their early success by covering Dylan's songs. Their hit version of Mr. Tambourine Man helped ignite the folk rock movement.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me.
So in a way, Dylan paved Crosby's road to fame, only for Crosby to later roll his eyes at the man who made it possible. But this was classic David Crosby, brutally honest, unfiltered, and always ready to call someone out, even if that someone was a legend. And while Crosby's comments might sound mild compared to Joni Mitchell's verbal flamethrower, they hit on something deeper: Dylan's coldness. That emotional distance that made him feel unreachable. Still, Crosby wasn't the only one who found Dylan unbearable. The next person didn't just criticize Dylan's attitude, he straight up insulted him. With all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Liam Gallagher, he's a miserable. If David Crosby thought Bob Dylan was distant, Liam Gallagher thought he was something else entirely, miserable. And in typical Liam fashion, he didn't bother sugarcoating it. Back in 2011, the Oasis frontman was asked about Dylan, and his answer was classic Gallagher, blunt, crude, and completely on brand. He's a bit of a miserable C***** as far as I'm concerned, Liam said. Just like that. No hesitation, no build-up, no apology. Now, this wasn't some drunken pub rant. This was Liam being honest, or at least his version of honest. He admitted to liking one Dylan song, Lay Lady Lay, but beyond that, he wasn't impressed.
Lay, lady, lay, lay across my big brass bed.
But he doesn't really do it for me, Liam shrugged. All those scares playing their greatest hits are schbags. That last line, yeah, it aged interestingly. Because Oasis, of course, made a career out of playing their greatest hits. But that's the thing about Liam. Hypocrisy never stopped him from speaking his mind. He spent decades taking shots at rock royalty, from Mick Jagger to Bono, and Dylan was just another name on the list. To Liam, Dylan represented the old guard, the untouchable legends that everyone else bowed down to. And if there's one thing Liam Gallagher has never done, it's bowed down. Still, buried under the insults was something telling. Liam wasn't really attacking Dylan's music. He was attacking the idea of Dylan, the cult around him, the obsession, the worship, the Bob can do no wrong attitude that's followed Dylan for half a century. In a way, it wasn't about hating the man. It was about rejecting the myth. Because in the rock world, legends like Dylan are treated like gods, and Liam Gallagher's never believed in gods. But for all his trash talk, Liam's comments almost sound tame compared to what came next. Because another rock veteran didn't just insult Dylan. He fired back with Dylan's own words. Chris Frantz, suck AD. When it comes to Bob Dylan, most critics at least try to sound polite. Chris Frantz didn't bother. The drummer from Talking Heads has always been a straight shooter, the kind of guy who'd rather start a fight than swallow an insult. So when Dylan took a swipe that brushed too close to home, Frantz decided to fire one right back. It started with Dylan's 2022 book, The Philosophy of Modern Song. In one chapter, Dylan praised Elvis Costello and the Attractions, calling them light years better than any of their contemporaries. Nice compliment for Costello, but for Frantz, who helped define that same new wave era, it sounded like a dig. So he clapped back on social media, quoting something Dylan himself had once said to a mutual friend. With all due respect to the Attractions, I'd like to say to Bob what he once said to a buddy of mine. Suck AD. That's not a metaphor. That's a musician losing his patience. Frantz later added that he still liked Dylan's book. He just couldn't ignore what felt like unnecessary shade. But if you know Chris Frantz's history, that reaction makes sense. He'd already spent years butting heads with his own frontman, David Byrne, over credit and ego. To him, Dylan's offhand dismissal wasn't literary. It was personal. What makes this clash so fascinating is how it shows Dylan's reach. Even when he's just writing, he manages to ruffle feathers across generations. A single line in a book was enough to make one of the 1980s most respected drummers quote Dylan's own profanity right back at him. And that's the thing about Bob Dylan. He doesn't even need to speak directly to cause chaos. His words alone start wars. But musicians weren't the only ones who couldn't stomach him. Because the next person on this list wasn't a rock star at all. He was one of America's greatest writers. And he called Dylan something far worse than fake. Kurt Vonnegut, the worst poet alive. You'd think the world of literature would celebrate Bob Dylan. After all, he literally won the Nobel Prize for it. But long before that honor, one of America's most respected authors had already decided that Dylan was, quote, the worst poet alive. That author was Kurt Vonnegut, the mind behind Slaughterhouse-Five, a man whose words shaped post-war American fiction. And when it came to music, Vonnegut didn't mince words either. In an old interview, he was asked about modern songwriters. His answer? Brutal. I hate rap. The Beatles have made a substantial contribution, he said, before dropping the hammer. Bob Dylan, however, is the worst poet alive. He can maybe get one good line in a song, and the rest is gibberish. That's not criticism. That's a literary execution. Now, keep in mind, Vonnegut wasn't just being edgy for attention. He genuinely believed poetry had rules, rhythm, and discipline, and Dylan, in his eyes, broke every single one. The rambling verses, the surreal imagery, the shifting voices. To Vonnegut, it wasn't poetry. It was chaos dressed up as art. But here's what makes this feud so ironic. The same chaos Vonnegut despised was exactly what millions of people loved about Dylan. The broken structure, the strange metaphors, the way his songs felt like dreams stitched together with sound. To his fans, that was genius. To Vonnegut, it was nonsense. Still, maybe Vonnegut's anger said more about him than about Dylan. Because Dylan represented a generation that rewrote every rule, in art, in music, in language. And for an old-school writer like Vonnegut, that probably felt like rebellion taken too far. So when he called Dylan the worst poet alive, it wasn't just about the lyrics. It was about what Dylan symbolized, the idea that art didn't need structure, that poetry could belong to everyone, not just intellectuals in tweed jackets. It's funny, isn't it? Two geniuses from different worlds, both trying to make sense of humanity, and one of them decided the other was ruining it. But if you asked Dylan, he wouldn't care. He's never cared. Because for every critic who called him a fraud or a failure, there were 1,000 others who saw a prophet. And love him or hate him, that kind of power doesn't come from luck. Still, even among legends, few artists inspire this much division. And as you've seen, from Joni Mitchell to Kurt Vonnegut, Bob Dylan might just be the most loved and the most hated genius in modern history. The man everyone loves to hate. By now, one thing's clear, Bob Dylan isn't just an artist. He's a mirror that reflects back whatever people bring to him. Admiration, envy, confusion, or pure, unfiltered hate. Because the truth is, Dylan never tried to be liked. He never explained his lyrics, never chased trends, and never cared who understood him. And somehow, that made him unforgettable. Think about it. Most musicians spend their entire careers begging for approval. Dylan built his by rejecting it. He changed the rules of songwriting, broke the boundaries of genre, and then disappeared behind his own shadow, leaving everyone else to figure out what it all meant. So when Joni Mitchell called him fake, when David Crosby said he was impossible, when Liam Gallagher mocked him, when Chris Frantz cursed him, and when Kurt Vonnegut called him the worst poet alive, Dylan didn't respond. He never had to, because by the time they were talking, his songs had already done the talking for him. That's the paradox of Bob Dylan. The more people tried to define him, the less he made sense. And maybe that's exactly why he's still here, outlasting almost everyone who criticized him. Love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. You can't box him in, you can't predict him, and you definitely can't cancel him. Because Bob Dylan doesn't belong to one generation or one sound. He belongs to the kind of timeless chaos that only true art can survive. And maybe that's why the greatest artists can't stand him. Because deep down, even his haters know they'll never write another like a Rolling Stone.